Is Donald Trump's so-called board of peace really a lifeline for Gaza, or just another power grab dressed up as diplomacy? With the Rafah border crossing potentially reopening and countries lining up to join the billion-dollar club, President Trump says peace is coming. But on the ground, Palestinians are still living in tents, under a blockade and under fire. I'm Madi Janayandar, and today's newsmaker is Gaza's unsettled peace. The headlines suggest hope, a new international effort, a possible reopening of Gaza's southern border, and promises of peace. But scratch the surface and things may not seem as hopeful. U.S. President Donald Trump's board of peace isn't backed by the United Nations, and it comes with $1 billion entry fee and lists him as president for life. The goal, according to supporters, is rebuilding Gaza. Critics, however, say it's about sidelining global order. And all the meanwhile, the suffering of ordinary Palestinians continues. Here's more on the story.
Gaza, months after the ceasefire. On paper, the guns have fallen silent. On the ground, daily life tells a different story. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are still living in makeshift shelters. Water is scarce. Electricity is unreliable. Hospitals and schools remain largely in ruins. And the violence has not fully stopped. Since the ceasefire came into force in October, local health authorities say more than 480 Gazans have been killed in Israeli strikes. Against this backdrop, a new international initiative is taking shape, far from Gaza. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, US President Donald Trump unveiled what he calls a new path to peace. The Board of Peace. Trump says the initiative is designed to help consolidate the ceasefire and accelerate reconstruction. Supporters argue it could provide new momentum. Critics, however, question both its structure and its legitimacy.
Esta junta está fuera del marco de Naciones Unidas.
This board is outside the framework of the United Nations and has not included the Palestinian Authority, the future of Gaza, nor the future of the West Bank, let's not forget. The future of Palestine as a whole must be led by the Palestinians, as must the future of its peaceful and secure coexistence with Israel, must be led primarily by Israel and Palestine in a dialogue process that implements the two-state solution.
Under the proposal, countries seeking permanent seats would be required to contribute $1 billion. And according to the charter released by the initiative, Donald Trump is listed as President for Life. The structure has raised concerns among diplomats and analysts, particularly because it appears to operate outside existing UN-led frameworks. Even the symbolism has drawn attention. The Board of Peace logo has been compared to the UN emblem, prompting questions about whether the initiative is meant to complement existing institutions or compete with them. At the center of the initiative is Trump's 20-point Gaza peace plan, built around several phases. But key details, including timelines and enforcement mechanisms, have not been publicly clarified. Phase 1 brought the ceasefire, a partial Israeli withdrawal, and return of hostages. Phase 2 is more ambitious and far more contested. It includes reopening the Rafah border crossing, the full demilitarization of Gaza, the disarmament of Hamas, and the transfer of governance to a committee of Palestinian technocrats. But fundamental questions remain unresolved. Who guarantees security? Who controls Gaza's borders? And what political future awaits its people?
President Trump announced that the second phase had begun, but we haven't seen anything. People in Al-Mawasi are living in tents, displaced. People in the east cannot reach their homes. You can hear the shooting, the shelling, day and night. Martyrs.
As global powers debate plans, boards, and phases, the fate of Gaza's 2 million residents remains uncertain. For them, the question is not who leads the peace process. but whether it will ever bring something far more basic, a chance at a normal life.
Joining me now from Cairo, International Advocacy Officer at the Palestinian Center for Human Rights, Basel al-Sourani. From London, Professorial Research Associate at SOAS, Haim Bresheeth. And from the U.S. state of Texas, Republican strategist and co-founder of Nest Point Associates, John Thomas. Gentlemen, welcome to all of you. John, let me begin with you. The White House, here's what the White House is putting out there, is touting. The Board of Peace is an historic initiative, but I'm wondering how you respond to critics who are essentially saying that it lacks legitimacy, especially from the UN side, and it could be perceived more like a President Trump PR vehicle rather than a genuine diplomatic effort. What do you say?
Well, sure, I understand that criticism, but look, Donald Trump has gotten more done diplomatically than the UN has in decades. We're also seeing just cooperation from the parties as a result of Trump's action, and getting upset at Donald Trump for putting forth a peace plan and trying to actually reopen the Strip. I'm not quite sure, other than diplomats that might be upset that they're left out of the process. I'm not sure why both a sustained ceasefire and now reopening of the Strip is such a bad thing. Okay, no, fair enough.
Basel, let me ask you. So John has said President Trump has done more in decades than anybody else. As someone who's working directly with human rights in Gaza, has the situation on the ground actually improved since the ceasefire, or are we just seeing a shift in how the suffering is managed?
Thanks. First of all, I come from a Palestinian human rights organization. It's one of the three Palestinian organizations that have been sanctioned by the U.S. administration, led by U.S. President Trump. And unfortunately, in relation to Gaza, what we hear words on the media that the situation is improving, that they have established the committee, that the crossings will be open, but that the aid is getting to the people. But in reality, what we are seeing on the ground is a dire humanitarian situation. The humanitarian aid is not getting in to those who are in need. Thousands of Palestinians are still imprisoned and enforcibly disappeared. There are more than 20,000 Palestinians who are in urgent need of medical treatment, and they are yet to get out of Gaza to receive this treatment. More than around 500 Palestinians have been killed since the 10th of October, when the ceasefire deal went into effect. So we are hearing about words, but in reality, the situations for Palestinians in Gaza has not changed. The genocide is still ongoing.
Okay, thank you for sort of putting the situation out there. Haim Bresheeth, let me get you in the conversation. The structure of the board appears to combine business elites, former diplomats, you could say controversial figures. Do you feel that there is perhaps a different agenda, a larger agenda behind this board? And do you feel that it is undermining global institutions?
Well, this is a privatized, unaccountable, unrepresentative private company run by Emperor Trump. It's peopled, you didn't mention in your list some war criminals like Tony Blair. It's basically there to weaken the UN. The UN Security Council has voted itself out of action by giving Trump this blank check. There's no reporting back. There's no responsibility. There's no review of its actions. This is Trump applying for a Nobel Peace Prize. The functions of this are nothing to do with Palestinians. As Basel said, there is no ceasefire. More than 500 people were killed since the ceasefire has been announced. Israel has sanctioned more than 30 organizations that can actually help the Palestinians, and they are not able to help because of Israeli decisions. I think what it is about is, first of all, it is producing income for the Trump administration. It is not about the Palestinians. No rights of the Palestinians are defined. It actually doesn't give the Palestinians anything. It takes from them any representation, any part in the negotiations, etc. The board does not include them. The decision makers don't include any Palestinians. It supplies cover for the continuation of the occupation, for settling Gaza by Jewish groups. It is involving international politicians that were invited by Trump, by nobody else. This is not discussed by the UN. This is a totally unrepresentative organization that will not produce peace and will not produce a Palestinian state. It will not produce security and food and medications for the Palestinians.
Okay. Haim, thanks for sort of summarizing that. John, I need to get your response to this. I mean, a lot has been said by Haim. I want you to respond to the $1 billion buyout clause and the accountability, the lack of accountability when there's no oversight mechanism, and any comments you want to add to what Haim said.
Sure. I mean, if it sounds like the critique is that Donald Trump didn't recreate an apparatus of the UN. I mean, that wasn't the intent. So I suppose if that's the critique, then that's fair. But the fact is, Donald Trump has stepped up time and time again, whether it was through Abraham Accords and others in the Middle East, to bring peace. And it's working. Is it without flaws? Of course not. But it's progress, and it's working. So does every voice have a seat at the table? No, and that wasn't by design. The point is to make progress and to start to reopen the Strip and rebuild it.
Okay. Haim, I want to get you a quick response to what John has said in terms of what you were answering in the first question, this being financially motivated, geopolitically motivated. Is there a motive, do you feel, to purposely sideline the United Nations? And if so, what are the consequences for the global landscape?
There is no question that this is sidelining the UN, and the UN played a part in sidelining itself. So this is no miracle. Basically, there is no reporting at all. They're not responsible to anyone apart from President Trump. This is the empire in action. And when John says, and I understand where he's coming from, he is a Republican and a supporter of the president. There is nothing that has changed on the ground for the Palestinians for the better. In a sense, it's worse because now aid is not allowed to most of the organizations that have done provision. So if John thinks that it's working, I don't know what is working. What is working is the application for a Nobel Peace Prize. That is working very well. It's not working for the Palestinians. If it's meant to enable Israel to continue its atrocities, it's working very well. And when, John, you're saying that no, not all the boys need to be at the table, well, the only people not at the table are the Palestinians. Is this an arrangement that makes sense? Not to me.
Basel, let's get you back in the conversation. I know that you were mentioning, or Haim was saying, it's not working for the Palestinians. When you look at the situation, the south border crossing, Rafah, may be reopening, but like you said, it's limited to one-way traffic. What risks does that pose to Palestinians, especially those trying to get back home?
Well, the problem is not only about Rafah crossing opening or not. All the attention is going into that way. But just let me get back to the discussion that was being. How can you have on the board of peace Benjamin Netanyahu, who's a war criminal who has the blood of more than 70,000 Palestinians on his hands, who has allowed for torture and rape to be conducted against thousands of Palestinian prisoners. For this person who you talk about everything, but you don't talk about the accountability for such war crimes. How can you have such a person who's wanted by the International Criminal Court, and an arrest warrant has been issued for him for war crimes and crimes against humanity? How can you have him as a member of the Board of Peace? Getting back to the point on Rafah crossing, what we fear, and that's the aim of this genocide that's taking place in Gaza for now over more than 2 years, is the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. The Israeli government, they want to forcibly expel more than 2 million Palestinians. And what we fear about this crossing being opened is that Israel will allow for thousands of Palestinians to leave, but it will put all the restrictions for all those trying to come back to Gaza. And at the end of the day, the people are still living in genocidal living conditions. So when they are getting out, they're not getting out because they want to. They're getting out because they are living under genocidal conditions in a place that is completely destroyed, that has no medical care, no housing, no schools, no universities, nothing. It's basically a place full of rubble. And that's what the Israeli government has intended over the last 2 years to do, is to make this place unlivable. So what we fear is the continuation of this ethnic cleansing project, and the establishment of the Board of Peace, and what Trump has created over the last couple of months with the Board of Peace. It doesn't address this question. It doesn't address the occupation. It doesn't address Israel's settler, colonial, and apartheid regime.
I want to specifically ask you about the reconstruction phase. I've seen you say that the goods that are entering Gaza through Israeli channels are being sold at a ridiculously high price. What, in your opinion, does this say about the reconstruction process?
There is no reconstruction process, and as we have heard from Netanyahu, he said that there will be no reconstruction before the disarmament of Hamas. What has the civilian population, the normal civilian population in Gaza, to do with the Hamas disarmament? What has the blocking and the removal of permits for more than 30 humanitarian organizations? What does this have to do with the Hamas disarmament? There is a clear intent by the Israeli government that this will be used as an excuse to basically start again, continue with the genocide, and keep this dire humanitarian situation continuing for as long as possible.
Okay. Haim, I want to ask you, and maybe we're going to sort of expand the conversation here. I mean, you've linked this Board of Peace to a potential regime change plan in Iran. Why do you see these as connected, and how should the international community respond to this?
Of all the members of the UN, Iran is the only one that helped the Palestinians to resist Israeli occupation. So, of course, it's related to the planning to attack Iran, which are prepared as we speak. You know, the Navy of the U.S., the Marines, the soldiers in U.S. bases in the Gulf are all preparing to attack Iran. Iran has never attacked unprovoked by another country. Iran has never attacked another country that didn't provoke it. And even when Israel provoked it for years, it still didn't attack until this summer. So basically, the only crime that can be put at Iran's door is supporting the Palestinian resistance to an illegal occupation. You know that the UN allows and mandates resistance to occupation ever since 1948. This is in the UN Charter. So basically, to attack Iran, and probably with nuclear weapons, which is what the Israelis are talking about, and we know that they have nuclear weapons and the Iranians don't, is part of destroying the main forces of the Middle East. After destroying Libya, destroying Syria, destroying Lebanon, destroying Yemen, destroying Iraq, the list goes on. And now Iran is a candidate for destruction. All these states are now basket cases. They cannot help the Palestinians. They do not help the Palestinians. And I think the world is not helping the Palestinians. So basically, the Palestinians are on their own. They are not in the board or on the board. They are not allowed to get, food, medications, and support from the international community because Israel is blocking it. And we're talking about peace. The only peace we're talking about is the Nobel Peace Prize. There's no peace involved. There's no self-determination for the Palestinians. For some reason, the emperor supports self-determination for Israelis, but denied self-determination for the Palestinians. Remember, Gaza was a modern city of 2.3 million people, even larger than Tel Aviv. It had all the amenities that you could have. It wasn't perfect because the Israelis are occupying, but it was a modern city. There is nothing left. What can a Palestinian woman who is now about to give birth look forward to? There are no hospitals to go to. There are no schools to go to. There is none of the amenities of modern life surviving in Gaza. And they are talking about the board of peace. Israel and the United States, who have destroyed Gaza, should pay for its rebuilding. They are not going to do that. They are not going to even allow rebuilding. What are we talking about?
Okay. John, I want to give you a chance to respond to what Haim was saying, and perhaps also put this out there, respond to what some would say that the United States is trying to reshape how the world is run, global governance, by offering an alternative to the United Nations. And you've sort of alluded to that a little bit. I mean, do you feel that this is a shift towards a more sort of transactional type diplomacy?
Well, I mean, if we're going to expand this to broader geopolitics, a lot of these conflicts the U.S. gets dragged into, they don't actually initiate in it, and it kind of goes against President Trump's campaign mandate to not have prolonged foreign entanglements. So he's trying to de-escalate situations, not create wars. I think the other panelists have made good points in the sense of, the Gaza Strip is devastated. And that's precisely what the Board of Peace is attempting to reconstruct. And yes, do you start with one-way traffic instead of two-way traffic with baby steps? Of course, because you have to make sure everything's stable. But complaining that there's not hospitals and there's not schools is not Donald Trump's fault. He's going in there attempting to come up with a plan to reconstruct. And that takes time and stability. So complaining about the current status quo, I think Donald Trump would agree that the status quo is unsustainable and we've got to rebuild.
Okay. Basel, I want to give you the last word on this. From your position as an advocate for Gazans, beyond the status quo, John was mentioning the plans, the summits, the promises. What is the most urgent step that needs to be taken right now?
With regards to the most urgent step is to make people have faith in tomorrow. That's what we need. We need the Palestinians to stay on the ground, to provide them with humanitarian aid, to provide them with construction, to make them hope that there is a future for tomorrow. But as John was saying about Trump and making a plan for Gazans, I believe that we as Palestinians can make a plan for ourselves if we didn't have the Israeli restrictions, we didn't have the Israeli occupation, we didn't have all those Israeli violations. So I think the root cause of all the violence, in order to, if President Trump is really concerned about peace, is to have an end to the occupation, is to have an end to Israel's settler colonial regime, because the status quo will only lead to more violence. It will only lead, while maybe it's quiet now, but we can't know what will happen in a couple of months, in a couple of weeks. So what we really need now is a genuine ceasefire and an end to the Israeli occupation. I think Palestinians can decide for themselves. They have the right to self-determination. They don't need they don't need a colonial regime on top of Israel's colonial regime to govern us and tell us what we should do. Palestinians, they have the expertise, they have the education, and they can build for themselves. But what we must allow, and then what the international community must provide for Gazans, is urgent relief, an end to the blockade, open the crossings, and allow for some hope for tomorrow, for the future generations.
Okay. Basel, al-Sourani, Haim Bresheeth, and John Thomas, thank you very much for joining us here on this episode of Newsmakers. And thanks to you for watching. You can follow us on social media and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. For now, I'm Arijan Ayanlar, and we'll see you next time.